Hi, this is Professor Blockchain from Professor Blockchain LLC, coming to you over the World Wide Web to go in now to what is proof of work and consensus protocols. Now, when I went into the other day our local Barnes and Nobles here in Texas, I went up to the front desk and I asked, "Do you have any books on blockchain?" And the woman working there, nice young lady, looked at me and says, "Isn't that Bitcoin stuff? I really don't understand that." Well, the biggest misconception out there is that blockchain equates to Bitcoin. And we all know that is not true. Rather, Bitcoin is built upon a blockchain. But what is true is that the first consensus algorithm that we're going to look at, proof of work, is the most widely used protocol of on all blockchains, and it is the protocol consensus algorithm used for Bitcoin. However, I think if we explain that when just asking for a book about blockchain, we would get a blank stare instead of help. I have to say, getting help is always a good thing whenever we're trying to find something that we need, and that's why I'm trying to make this easy so you can find and understand what we are talking about. So let's get to what proof of work actually is. Now we know this algorithm is utilized, as I said before, by Bitcoin and almost all major coins, including Ethereum to a certain degree, because Ethereum is now planning on moving over to proof of stake. And this works by confirming proof of work works by confirming chain transactions and the creation of new blocks through special nodes called miners. No, these are not coal miners. This is not the coal industry. We're not talking about clean coal. We are talking about proof of work and blockchain. But nodes and miners are as important to proof of work as coal miners are to the coal industry. Makes it easy to understand. Now, we're coming across right now. We're streaming over the World Wide Web, and we can have a global conversation, a worldwide classroom, if you like. But let's take a moment, close our eyes, and think that we are actually sitting in a physical classroom, and that the number 64 is written on a board in this classroom. Now, seated in this classroom are all of us who are listening. And each of us have 10 individual dice in our hands, and we want to roll perfect 64. No, I am not taping this from Bellagio in Las Vegas, and no, this isn't gambling. Rather, it's proof of work. Now, while each individual roll takes a little effort, it would take many consecutive rolls for any one individual to finally roll a perfect 64, regardless of how many combinations of sides may add up to 64. Now imagine that each person rolling is competing to find new combinations of numbers that add up to 64 for a certain prize, and that every time a competitor rolls a certain combination that does indeed add up to 64, no other competitor may submit that combination for a prize ever again, forcing each competitor to make more and more attempts before finally receiving a prize-winning roll. This form of first past the post work for prize is basically how proof of work, or POW, functions. Except instead of trying to roll dice for a unique combination adding up to 64, they're using computers to perform complex mathematical functions called hash functions. No, not the kind of hash you smoke, but hash functions in computers, in hopes of finding new, very specifically formatted hashes. You're now at this point rolling your eyes saying, what are hashes? I was just trying to understand the example of 64. Well, the example of 64 stands, and if you want to know more about hash and hash marks and go more into depth of what is proof of work, there is a article I wrote and you can find it at professorblockchain.com, or I will add a link to this as well. And that's it for proof of work, and it's now time to move on to our next consensus protocol. Once again, this is Professor Blockchain from Professor Blockchain LLC.